In the small, forgotten town of Hollow Creek, a dark river snakes through the dense woods, its waters thick and black as ink. Local legend whispers of its cursed origins, claiming it was born from the tears of a grieving mother who lost her child to the depths of the forest. The townspeople avoid its banks, warning newcomers of the strange occurrences that surround the water shadows that flicker just beyond sight, the soft sounds of a child's laughter echoing in the night, and the chilling feeling of being watched. When a group of friends Daniel, Lisa, Mark and Sarah arrive for a weekend getaway, they are drawn to the river's ominous beauty, dismissing the superstitions as mere folklore. As night falls, the air grows heavy with an unsettling stillness, broken only by the sound of rustling leaves. Ignoring the warnings, they decide to camp by the river, lighting a fire that casts long, dancing shadows against the trees. They share ghost stories, laughter mingling with the night air, but a strange sense of dread lingers in the back of their minds, growing as the darkness deepens. Suddenly, Lisa hears a soft voice calling her name from the riverbank, a sweet melody that tugs at her heart. Mesmerized, she approaches the water, feeling an inexplicable connection to it. The others shout for her to come back, but the call becomes irresistible, drowning out their pleas. As she reaches the water's edge, her reflection morphs into a dark, twisted version of herself, eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. Panic erupts as Daniel and Mark rush to pull her away, but the water seems to pulse with life, gripping Lisa in a cold embrace. In their frantic struggle, Sarah stumbles and falls, her scream piercing the night as she disappears into the underbrush. The others turn, horror washing over them as they realize she is gone. They frantically search the shadows, calling her name, but the forest swallows their cries, echoing only the laughter that seems to come from the river itself. As they regroup, a chilling realization sets in: the river has taken Sarah, just as it had taken others before her, luring them with promises of comfort before dragging them into the abyss. With the fire flickering low, the group feels the oppressive darkness close in around them, and one by one, they begin to unravel. Daniel, unable to cope with the guilt of not protecting Sarah, starts to hear whispers, voices that promise him salvation if he embraces the river's depths. Mark's bravado crumbles, and he becomes increasingly paranoid, convinced the river itself is watching, waiting for them to give in to despair. Lisa, torn between reality and the seductive pull of the water, begins to lose her grip on sanity, haunted by visions of Sarah's smiling face beckoning her to join her in the dark. As the night stretches on, the river seems to come alive, its waters swirling ominously, as if plotting their fate. The friends realize they must confront the river's dark legacy if they hope to save Lisa and themselves. They venture deeper into the woods, guided by the echoes of Sarah's laughter, only to stumble upon a hidden clearing, where they find remnants of the town's tragic past, a makeshift shrine adorned with faded photographs of those who disappeared, faces twisted in eternal sorrow. With newfound determination, they perform a desperate ritual, hoping to break the river's curse. But as they chant, the shadows around them thicken, forming into grotesque figures that reach for them with gnarled hands. The air grows colder, the river's surface roiling as it fights against their efforts. Just when it seems all hope is lost, Lisa steps forward, confronting the dark reflection of herself that the river has conjured. In a moment of clarity, she recognizes that the darkness is not just in the river, but within her, a reflection of her own fears and regrets. The ground trembles, and the figures dissolve as Lisa embraces her inner turmoil, her voice rising above the cacophony. The river howls, its waters thrashing violently, but the bond between the friends strengthens, their unity illuminating the darkness. With one final plea, they call out to Sarah, reaching into the depths of the river's sorrow, pulling together their memories of friendship, love, and resilience. In a blinding flash, the water calms, the shadows retreating as the first light of dawn breaks through the trees. The river, once a vessel of despair, transforms before their eyes, revealing a shimmering surface that reflects the rising sun. Sarah's laughter rings out one last time, echoing through the woods, and with it, a sense of peace settles over Hollow Creek. The friends, forever changed, vow to protect the memories of those lost, understanding now that the darkest rivers can also lead to the light, if only they have the courage to face their fears and fight for one another. As dawn broke over Hollow Creek, the friends stood at the riverbank, the shimmering waters reflecting the warm glow of the sun. Though they had freed themselves from the river's immediate grasp, an unsettling weight still hung in the air. The laughter that had once echoed so hauntingly was now replaced by an eerie silence, leaving them with a sense of unfinished business. Each of them bore the scars of the night wounds deeper than skin, etched into their souls. Determined to honor Sarah's memory, they decided to investigate the town's history further. Perhaps understanding the river's past would help them find peace. They set off towards the town centre, which seemed almost abandoned, as if time had forgotten it. The buildings stood in disrepair, ivy climbing their walls, windows shattered and gaping like empty eyes. A palpable sense of loss hung over the place, and the friends exchanged worried glances. They stumbled upon a small, dusty library, its sign barely hanging on. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of old books and secrets waiting to be uncovered. As they sifted through the yellowed pages, they discovered a series of journals written by the townsfolk over the decades. The entries told stories of inexplicable disappearances, strange rituals, and a cycle of grief that seemed to bind the community to the dark river. One journal, belonging to a woman named Clara, caught Lisa's attention. Clara had written of a vision she experienced after losing her child to the river. Her words were frantic, describing a deep connection between the river and the town's collective sorrow. "The river feeds on our grief," Lisa read aloud. "It thrives on the tears of mothers, the despair of those left behind." With every word, the sense of urgency grew among them. They realized that the river was not just a passive force, it was alive, thriving on their pain and loss. They needed to confront the source of this sorrow if they wanted to break the cycle for good. As they pored over the journals, they discovered a recurring name: Lillian, a woman who had once attempted to appease the river by performing a ritual meant to honor the lost. However, her efforts had only drawn more despair. Determined to find Lillian's resting place, they followed the cryptic clues left in the journals, which led them to the town cemetery. Among the overgrown graves, they found Lillian's tombstone, aged and cracked, yet adorned with fresh flowers, a sign that someone still remembered her. Kneeling in front of the grave, they felt a strange energy emanating from the ground, an echo of the grief that had persisted through generations. They decided to hold their own ritual, a tribute to both Lillian and Sarah, hoping to release the hold the river had on the town. As twilight descended once again, they gathered around Lillian's grave, clutching candles and the mementos of their friendship, a photo of them all together, a bracelet that Sarah had once worn, and a lock of Lisa's hair, which she had cut off in a moment of despair after losing Sarah. With trembling hands, they began to speak their truths, sharing their fears, their regrets, and their hopes for the future. Each word was a release, a step towards breaking the river's grip on their lives. As they spoke, the air around them began to change. The wind picked up, swirling leaves around them like a dance of spirits, and they could hear the distant sound of the river, more insistent now, as if it was angry at their defiance. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them, and shadows emerged from the trees, swirling around them like a storm. The friends huddled closer together, their voices rising in unity as they called out to Lillian, asking for her guidance, for her strength to help them confront the river's darkness. They felt a warmth spread through them, a comforting presence that seemed to push back against the encroaching shadows. As they held hands and continued to chant, they noticed the shadows beginning to flicker and fade. It was as if Lillian's spirit was joining them, amplifying their resolve. But just as hope ignited, the river surged with a furious roar, spilling over its banks, reaching out with tendrils of darkness that threatened to engulf them. In that moment, they understood the river could only be appeased by acknowledging the pain it had caused. They shifted their focus from fear to compassion, directing their words toward the river itself, recognizing its hunger for sorrow. They spoke of the love that had once existed in Hollow Creek, of the joy that had been overshadowed by loss, pleading with the river to release its hold. The waters thrashed violently, but amidst the chaos, they felt a shift. The shadows began to recede, and the air grew lighter. They visualized the river transforming, the dark waters lightening as they poured their collective grief into a river of light, illuminating the darkness around them. With one final, powerful chant, they felt the ground shake one last time, and then silence fell. The river calmed, its waters now a crystalline blue, sparkling under the moonlight. The oppressive weight that had hung over the town lifted, leaving behind a sense of peace. As they stood there, breathless and trembling, the first rays of dawn broke through the trees once more, illuminating the path ahead. They had not only freed Sarah and Lillian, but had also lifted the curse that had plagued Hollow Creek for generations. In the days that followed, the town began to change. The broken buildings showed signs of repair, and whispers of hope replaced the tales of despair. The friends became a part of this revival, sharing their story and ensuring that the lessons learned were never forgotten. They planted flowers along the riverbanks, a tribute to those lost and a promise to embrace the joy of life. Though the river remained, its dark past was transformed into a source of healing, a reminder that even the darkest waters could lead to the light. The friends would often return to the river, now a peaceful companion, gathering by its banks to celebrate their friendship and the resilience of their spirits. In Hollow Creek, the river was no longer a place of sorrow but a testament to their courage, a symbol of the bonds that could overcome even the darkest of nights. As the weeks passed, the transformation of Hollow Creek became evident. The once abandoned town now pulsed with life and renewed hope. With each visit to the river, the friends found themselves not just healing but flourishing, their bond deepening in the wake of their shared experience. On the first anniversary of Sarah's disappearance, they decided to host a gathering by the river, inviting the townspeople to join in a celebration of life and remembrance. They planned a festival that would honor both those lost to the river and the resilience of those who remained. Colorful banners adorned the trees, and laughter began to fill the air, echoing the joy that had once been absent from Hollow Creek. As evening approached, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The friends set up a bonfire near the riverbank, its flames flickering warmly against the cooling night. People began to arrive carrying food, stories, and memories. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of unity, a collective spirit that sought to reclaim what had been lost. Lisa stood at the center, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. She looked at Daniel and Mark, their faces illuminated by the firelight. "This is for Sarah," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "And for everyone we've lost. Let's make sure they're never forgotten." As the first guests gathered around the fire, Lisa shared the story of their journey, the dark nights spent by the river, the search for answers, and the rituals that had ultimately saved them. She spoke of Lily and Clara and the mothers whose grief had bound the town to the water. Her words resonated with the townspeople, who listened in rapt attention, their expressions a mixture of sorrow and understanding. As dusk turned to night, Mark took the stage next, recounting the legends that had once haunted Hollow Creek, sharing tales of bravery and resilience that were woven into the town's fabric. He encouraged everyone to honor their own losses, to embrace their memories rather than shy away from them. Soon, they invited others to share their stories, memories of those they had loved and lost. An older woman stood up, her voice trembling but strong. "My daughter was taken by the river years ago," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. "But I feel her spirit here tonight, with all of you. We are not alone." The gathering continued, each story building on the last, creating a tapestry of shared grief and healing. The friends felt the weight of their past lifting as they spoke of their experiences, surrounded by people who understood their pain. As the fire crackled, Daniel suggested they release lanterns into the night sky, each one representing a lost soul. Everyone eagerly agreed, and soon the air was filled with the soft glow of floating lights, drifting upward like whispered prayers. The friends watched as the lanterns rose, their hearts swelling with hope and love. "Look at them," Lisa whispered, her eyes shimmering with tears. "They're free now." As the last lantern disappeared into the night, a profound silence fell over the crowd. In that moment, they all felt an overwhelming sense of connection, an understanding that the river had once been a source of despair, but now it was a place of peace, a vessel for healing rather than grief. As the festival wore on, laughter and music filled the air. The friends joined in the dancing, their movements light and free, the burdens of their past lifted. They felt Sarah's presence with them, a warmth that wrapped around their hearts, reminding them of the strength of their friendship. Later that night, they gathered once more by the river, the moonlight shimmering on the surface like a million tiny stars. The water flowed gently, a stark contrast to the chaos it had once brought. They sat together, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here, the pain that had ultimately led to their liberation. "I never thought we could overcome it," Mark said, breaking the contemplative silence. "But we did, together." "And we'll keep doing it," Daniel added, his voice steady. "We'll always come back to this place, to each other." Lisa nodded, looking at the water. "The river will always be a part of us, but it's up to us to shape what that means. We can keep telling our story, keep honoring those we've lost." As dawn began to break, the friends made a promise to one another to continue sharing their truth, to support the community in healing, and to always return to the river where their bond had been forged. The light of a new day spread across Hollow Creek, the town awakening to the promise of a brighter future. The river flowed gently, a reminder that even in darkness hope could be found, and life could flourish again. As they watched the sunrise together, they understood that their journey was far from over. It was just the beginning. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of friendship and the beauty of the river, they felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The scars of the past remained, but they had learned to carry them with grace, their hearts forever intertwined with those they had lost, and the love that would guide them forward.